It's a fun story. It's about this one guy in India who was blubbering in a cemetery, and Nagarjuna or somebody like that, Saraha, one of the great adepts, the great sort of psychonaut, shaman, yogis, found him. He was he's all blubbering there, sort of slightly fat guy. And so what's your problem? He says, well, they threw me out of the house, my wife and mother and everybody. They kicked me out of the village, they threw me out of the house. And they were, why did they do that? You seem a nice, harmless guy. He said, well, they got tired of me. Well, why did they get tired of me? Well, because all I like to do is sleep. And I just sleep and wake up, they feed me, and I go back to sleep. That's all I do. So now they said, well, if you just sleep, you can just go sleep in the grave, get out of town. And they're like, we're not going to feed you anymore. And so he was crying. He was thrown out. So now he said, oh, you are an interesting person. There's a borderline case, you see, whose borderlineness is being now actually a step forward. So he says, you're an interesting case because you are looking for something deeper than just running around being a person. Because you just like to sleep. So now he initiated him in a certain vision of the world, and he taught him the yoga of merging sleep with the body of truth, Buddha body of truth, and with death, sleep, death, body of truth, and what is called clear light of the void. And so then he said, okay, you got that, now go back to sleep. So then the guy went back to sleep, and the people in the town were slightly freaked because he slept for 12 years. And then nobody fed him, but he seemed just as fat as ever. And then finally, he started levitating his sleeping body. And he started floating over the village. And then without waking up, he started teaching them the Dharma. And then they had visions of him, and he was like all surrounded by dakinis and like angels and all these things. And he was glowing, radiating, liberating light rays and all this. And he was sound asleep the whole time. So he was showing the non-duality of sleep and waking. But, I'm sure he was doing important dream work. Having many embodiments in a dream where he was doing much harder work than the lazy Slav sleep behavior. But they don't discuss that because they're so amused by the idea of sleeping your way to Buddhahood. And that's happened to be one of my favorite stories because I'm one of these overstressed Americans who's probably sleep deprived over the years.